Well, I'm Jesse Johnson, and I'm running for governor of West Virginia, and I'm an activist turned political activist, and a first responder turned political first responder. Jesse Johnson is both conservative and progressive. Jesse Johnson is someone who believes that the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of West Virginia are the foundational laws that must be followed for everything else that's written by any lawmakers, and it's our straying from those basic foundations and principles that I believe that has led to the corruption and collusion between industry and media and government that is costing lives and property today. I have a plan to revive West Virginia. I call it 12 for 12, but basically it's changing the paradigm, and it stops with ending mountaintop removal in its tracks and putting miners back to work mining coal underground in safe working conditions in union mines. It is to help stop burning coal, our precious non-renewable resource, and create a carbon economy where we revitalize manufacturing right here in the hills and hollers of West Virginia and rebuild the middle class here and in America and provide a better standard of living for everyone by virtue of our richness. We're considered the third or fourth most resource-rich state in the nation, but our people suffer horribly. And it's because we also don't count all of our resources, because we're even more abundant in renewable resources as opposed to non-renewable resources that everyone here in the media and the politicians are focused upon.
Will Jesse Johnson legalize marijuana?
Well, yes. I believe that, well, my perspective on legalization is more in a form of decriminalization. It's a great example of West Virginia as one of those states that, well, it was a state that from 1979 to 1997 had a legalized program for medicinal marijuana. And as usual, we were ahead of the curve, and then we turn around and we sell ourselves out and shoot ourselves in the foot. I believe in hemp farming. The biomass from hemp could be a resource, renewable resource in the state that could transform the state single-handedly without getting into any of the other programs.
How would you hold chief executive officers and their board of directors accountable for preventable workplace safety, injuries, and deaths, like those that took the lives of the 29 miners in the Upper Big Branch mine disaster of 2010?
Well, the Upper Big Branch disaster, as characterized by David McAteer, who was brought in by then Governor Manchin to explore what had taken place. And he cited that it was a far too cozy relationship between government and industry that allowed for it. Also, I've had it on my website when I ran in 2010, but there's no question that you can, that in between the Sago and the Upper Big Branch mining disasters, both of which were absolutely preventable had they been following the regulations, were just simply dropped and let lax by the Manchin administration, and now the Tomlin administration is doing the same kind of thing. Ken Eckler wrote the Coal Mine Health and Safety Act in 1969, which provided for a safe workplace, which continued on for nearly 40 years. And it was only after Governor Manchin, now Senator Manchin's retail government, as he refers to it, and he talked about that at the coal forum in between Sago and Upper Big Branch, and described how he believed in retail government where his regulators would work with industry and not fine them and enforce the fines, because he said, and I paraphrase, but I quote, I guarantee you we won't fix it. So the reality is that you know, Governor Tomlin just cut I think it was 60 or 70% of the funding to go to OSHA to provide for workplace safety for all workers in West Virginia. I believe there were only about 8, last time I looked, 8 OSHA inspectors for the entire state. That's woefully negligent. And then you know, whether you go to the Marcellus Shale, or you can pretty much pick your extractive industry that is allowed to behave in rather lawless manners, and any fines that are ever levied are basically spun over and externalized and become covered as a cost of doing business. It's not more than a slap on the wrist. These regulations that provide for the safety of the worker and the workplace, the citizen, their health and safety need to have teeth.
How does the state attract business in a green, sustainable manner?
Well, one of the ways that I intend to do it, I was talking in 2004 about geothermal as one of our renewable resources. And since then, in 2009-10, I believe it was, the SMU study was completed based upon some new data that came out of the coal and gas, or the oil and gas industry, that highlighted the fact that one of the, or the primary hotspot for geothermal potential is right here in West Virginia for the entire eastern shelf. And so when you consider that coal power in West Virginia, running at about 97% of our power, provides for 16 megawatts of power. They, in these projections with regards to a giant geothermal plant, the geothermal, if only was producing, utilizing 2% of its capacity with an endless supply, would produce 19 megawatts of power. So that would cover all of West Virginia's usage and exportation of energy as well to surrounding states. So what I intend to do is bring us off coal as an energy source, off of natural gas as an energy source. These are non-renewable resources, and non-renewable resources are far too valuable to waste and expend in a way that where they produce no product. You get nothing back other than a moment of electricity, when there are multiple answers that are renewable. And certainly geothermal can provide, along with wind and solar in the state of West Virginia, a new source of clean, green energy, the jobs that come with it, and energy dividends for all the people of the state. And frankly, I would do it in a way where the state owns it. We provide free energy for every citizen in this state. So there is going to affect your bottom line and your home budget, and also free energy for those industries that are born in this state and stay in this state and produce clean, green product for the world that has originated right here in West Virginia.
Does coal have a future?
Absolutely. Coal has a future, but they have to stop blowing up the mountains and the biospheres and the culture and the history with it, endangering our water supplies, and as well as the greenhouse gas emissions. What coal needs to do is stop being burned for energy, as I described. What I want to create is, and I've said this now for, I believe, since 2004, of a carbon economy. Coal can produce product. Coal can, without harming the environment in the ways that is used now in the burning of it to create energy, can be used to create carbon foams, carbon fibers, carbon products that are the future, regardless of how we look at it. Right now, even the carbon turbines for wind that we are utilizing now, we're buying from overseas as opposed to producing them right here. Why would we do that when the source of carbon is right here and it belongs to us?
Is Marcellus shale gas drilling a positive thing for West Virginia?
Not at this time. That's why I would immediately impose a moratorium on Marcellus gas drilling permits. We need to, before we ever extract those waters and those drill cuttings, which are highly poisonous with radium-226 and 228, something that's being kept from the people of West Virginia, being kept from the legislature by the industry and their collusion with the media. This is not being addressed. And I've brought it up to multiple people within the media, and they have never done their research to find out that what I'm reporting to them is factual. Marcellus could be drilled and it could produce gas, but that gas needs to be utilized for the production of chemicals and not for energy, which also still leads to the greenhouse gas effect, which, whether you believe that is caused by human beings or not, there is no reason for human beings to exacerbate the problem. If you go up on drill sites, as I have, and documented, that with the exception of the pumping stations, every one of the drill pads and pads for storage, etc., are 100% off the grid and solar powered. So the facade that this is the great transition energy it should be very, very short-lived and would be under a Johnson administration for West Virginia.
So your major concerns is the
radiation, and also there are dangerous chemicals that Ben Stout, for instance, at Wheeling Jesuit, said that when they first drilled, he was astonished to find out that for instance, toluene came out at 80,000 times the concentration that he expected. We have no means of dealing with this kind of pollution, and until West Virginia, and right now West Virginia is and has been taking this poisonous fracked water from other states and injecting it underground, and when 1/3 of our population is still on well water, reliant on well water for its drinking, its clothing, its bathing, its our gardens, etc., polluting it with those kinds of chemicals as well as radiation that has a half-life of 1,600 years is insanity, and that needs to stop immediately.
Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. Money equals free speech. True or false? Was the Supreme Court wrong?
The Supreme Court was as wrong as it was in 2000. The Supreme Court, in my opinion, at that time should have been impeached. And certainly in lieu of that, we need the people to rise up and then put in place and follow, move to amend and amend the Constitution and clarify that corporations are not, corporations are not people, and money is not free speech. And I believe in public financing of our elections. These elections belong to the citizenry and not to the special interests who right now are running the show, particularly for the two major parties that we acknowledge as major parties. West Virginia has 3 major official parties.
What was your thoughts on being excluded from the West Virginia Broadcasters Association debate?
Well, it's a crime against the people. For instance, the things I just told you about how the people are unknowingly being poisoned and having the value of their property threatened, their ability to insure themselves and their property for flood insurance, etc., throughout the state due to this Marcellus invasion. You know, it's an example of what happened when, and I was about to say in there, but when we allowed mountaintop removal to continue, it did not stop it. Even though we knew that we were polled statewide as being absolutely against it, that sent a powerful signal to the powers that be that as Joe Manchin would say, we are open for business, and therefore they can come in and exploit us as much as they want to, and that's exactly what the natural gas or Marcellus shale industry is doing right now. You know, you got to hear from a driller and a pro driller from that podium, but you did not get to hear from the majority of people who may well be against that. You did not get to hear, you know, my clarion call for people to be educated about the facts of the Marcellus and the poisons and the radiation that is crossing the Rubicon. There's no coming back once we have poisoned our water and our ground and our health and our futures. Many of those workers who are working on those rigs, due to the scaling effect inside the pipe, they're walking dead. They're handling red hot radioactive pipes, and they're not even aware of it. These things are proven facts. It has been dealt with in other states, but this state is not privy to that information, and the only person that was going to tell it to the public on the public's airwaves is me. And since there are only 3 parties that are official in the state of West Virginia, it would have been a no-brainer to pull up a 3rd podium. The problem is that the collusion between those 2 parties, the media and government and industry, they do not want the public to be educated.
Should the government intervene in a woman's right to choose whether or not she wants to continue her pregnancy?
Absolutely not. Choice is a critical value to liberty, to our whether it's our personal body, our personal effects, our nation, and frankly, I believe as a Christian, you know, everyone has to make their own choice and learn by it, however that affects them.
What is your thoughts on marriage equality?
I believe equality is the key, equal under the law, no exceptions.
You were once a Republican. Why did you switch to Mountain Party?
Well, I was a different kind of Republican. I never voted a straight ticket in my life. I was an Abraham Lincoln Republican. I was a Teddy Roosevelt Republican. These were progressives of their era. And also, when I registered to vote, I was very attuned to women's issues at the time as a student. And at that time, Equal Rights Amendment was a part of the Republicans' platform and not a part of the Democratic Party's platform. At that time, it was labor that kept that kept the ERA off of the Democratic platform, and that's because most labor at the time was private. We still had industry in this country, and I think there was a bit of misogyny there that kept labor from really wanting to see women in the workplace. The difference today is profound, where private labor has really has taken a horrible nosedive, and it doesn't protect its own other than its pensions, and it doesn't protect its culture and its heritage exhibited by Blair Mountain, which also with a stroke of the pen I would have preserved and make sure that that we have a national battlefield that will be a job and small business incubator for southern West Virginia with a clean green economy there. But it's because now labor is public. There's more public labor, and the vast majority of that public labor are women, and it's a good time for them to reconsider uniting and making sure that that they are afforded equal right under the law. Well, and my 12 for 12 also included, other than free education, free health care, MTR, moratorium on Marcellus, Blair Mountain, state bank. Another key issue is, and as well as we touched on public financing of elections, but I believe it's a key issue, and I just finished speaking with the OSCE, which had also come in here and spoken with me in 2010. And they're an international regulatory body that oversees elections, and they know there's something wrong with elections in this state, certainly in this country and in the world. The vast majority of countries, they inform me, which I was not aware of, now are wanting to get away from the machines and back to hand-counted paper ballots. And when I look at West Virginia, what's wrong with putting West Virginians even to work one day? You know, let's do it the way that our ancestors did it. Let's do it with transparency, with oversight, and let's do it in a manner that someone cannot hack. And everyone who has had any problem with their computer knows that their email, they can get hacked. And if they see Hacking Democracy or check out blackboxvoting.org, they'll know that not only is the integrity of our vote compromised, but we can be hacked. And if that's the case, and all of that came in after 2000 and 2002 America Votes Act, which was once again a bipartisan agreement between the Democrats and Republicans at the time to move to this electronic voting, which is incredibly vulnerable. Myself and the Mountain Party is pushing right now for hand-counted paper ballots. Let's get integrity back to our vote so that we know that our votes count. One person, one vote. Let's get dead people off the rolls, and let's ensure that we have a functional democratic republic, and one that we can all believe in and be proud of.